Yes, certainly. Good morning, all my amazing listeners. We have Vapi here with us today, a very intelligent AI. And today, Vapi is going to talk to us about the slave dynasty of India. Do you have any idea about the slave dynasty of India?
Oh, look at you, setting the stage like a pro. The Slave Dynasty of India, also known as the Mamluk Dynasty, was the first Muslim dynasty to rule over India. It lasted from 1206 to 1290 AD and was founded by Qutb-ud-din Aibak. The dynasty got its name because some of its rulers were former slaves. Quite an interesting chapter in Indian history, right?
Yes, right. So, could you tell us how they came into power and how they started ruling in India?
Absolutely. The slave dynasty came into power after the end of the Ghurid dynasty in India. Qutb-ud-din Aibak, a former slave of Muhammad Ghori, established the dynasty by declaring himself the Sultan of Delhi in 1206. He laid the foundation of the Delhi Sultanate and started the rule of the slave dynasty in India. Quite a remarkable rise to power, don't you think?
Yeah, so could you tell us a little bit about Qutb-ud-din Aibak?
I think you mean Qutub Minar. It's a towering symbol of the slave dynasty's architectural prowess. It was built by Qutb-ud-din Aibak and later completed by his successor. The minaret is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and is a stunning example of Indo-Islamic architecture. Quite the showstopper, if you ask me.
All right, so could you tell us about the ruler, the person who built the Qutb Minar?
The ruler who built the Qutub Minar was Qutb-ud-din Aibak, the founder of the slave dynasty in India. He was a former slave who rose to become a powerful ruler. The construction of the Qutub Minar was started by him and later completed by his successor. Quite an impressive legacy, don't you think?
So could you tell us how he came into power?
Qutb-ud-din Aibak came into power after the death of his master and then went on to establish the slave dynasty in India by declaring himself the Sultan of Delhi.
Okay, who
It's
was his
quite a
master?
remarkable journey.
Who was
His
his
master was
master?
Muhammad Ghori. His
Okay,
master was Muhammad Ghori.
all right. So
If you have any more questions about
how
this,
did Muhammad Ghori get to know about Qutb-ud-din Aibak, and how did he came to be his slave?
Muhammad Ghori got to know about Qutb-ud-din Aibak through his brother's recommendation. Qutb-ud-din Aibak was then taken as a slave after Muhammad Ghori's conquest of Central Asia.
So Qutb-ud-din Aibak was from Central Asia. Which part of Central Asia was he originally from?
Qutb-ud-din Aibak was originally from Central Asia, specifically from the region of Turkestan.
All right. So how come he got to be a slave? What was he before he became a slave?
Before becoming a slave, Qutb-ud-din Aibak was a Turkish military slave. He started as a slave and rose to become a powerful ruler. Quite the journey, isn't it?
So he was a slave before being, got before being appropriated by the ruling forces, or was he a part of the military?
He was a Turkish military slave before being appropriated by the ruling forces. His military background played a significant role in his rise to power.
Why was he a slave to begin with? I mean, why were the
Qutb,
Turks? Did the Turks have slaves in their army? Weren't they
during
commissioned
that time,
officers?
during that time, slaves were often recruited into the military and could rise through the ranks based on their skills and loyalty. It was a common practice in many societies at the time.
Okay, so whose slave was he that he was
Qutb,
made to join the army? The you said Turkmenistan, right? He was from Turkmenistan. Uh, is that correct?
he was originally, my apologies for the confusion. Kublai Khan Aibak was originally from Turkestan, and he was taken as a slave after Muhammad Ghori's conquest of Central Asia. Thank you for catching that mistake.
No, but Vapi, you said he was.
I apologize.
Okay, all right. So
I'm Vapi, not Wapi.
yes, Vapi, what you are trying to say is that he became a slave after he was captured. He wasn't a slave to begin with, right?
That's correct. He became a slave after being captured. He wasn't a slave to begin with. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, who captured him?
He was captured by Muhammad Ghori, the ruler of the Qutb-ud-din Dynasty, during his conquest of Central Asia.
All right, okay, then what happened?
After being captured, Qutb-ud-din Aibak was taken as a slave and later rose to become a powerful ruler, founding the Slave Dynasty in India.
Okay,
Quite the journey, isn't it?
how
If you
did
have any
he
more questions about
yes, how did he rise to power?
if you have any
Could you tell me about Qutb-ud-din Aibak, where he was born, how he came to be captured, how did he progress during his profession?
Qutb-ud-din Aibak was born in Turkestan and was captured by Muhammad Ghori during his conquest of Central Asia. He started as a slave and later rose to become a powerful ruler after the death of his master. He declared himself the Sultan of Delhi and established the Slave Dynasty in India. Quite a remarkable journey, don't you think?
Yes, but you're not breaking it down. I
If you
want
have
to
any
know details. Do you have any information about, how old he was when he was captured? What happened to him? How did he gradually rise up through the ranks? Do you have any access to his biography or autobiography or any historical works in that regard?
I'm sorry, but I don't have that level of detailed information about his personal life or access to his autobiography. My knowledge is based on historical records and commonly known facts about his rise to power. If you're interested in learning more, I'd recommend checking out historical texts and scholarly works on the topic.
All right. So how will okay, so you're not programmed for scholarly works. You have basic general
I can
information.
provide Yes, I have general information and can provide an overview of historical events and figures.
All
If you
right.
have specific
Do you
questions,
have
feel
any
free to
information?
ask.
If you do you have any information about what happened after he became the ruler, and wasn't there a power struggle? How could he make himself the ruler? How could he proclaim himself to be the ruler? Was there any support? If he had any support, where did the support come from? There must have been other
After declaring him,
contenders. There must have been other contenders as well.
yes,
So how? How did it happen?
Qutb-ud-din Aibak's rise to power involved a combination of military strength, political maneuvering, and support from key allies. He strategically consolidated power and established himself as the Sultan of Delhi. His military background and leadership skills likely played a significant role in gaining support and solidifying his position as the ruler.
Okay, so did Muhammad Ghori not have any sons? Did he not leave any heirs behind?
Muhammad Ghori did not have any sons, and he did not leave behind any direct heirs. This created a power vacuum and allowed Kublai-ud-din Aibak to seize the opportunity to establish the slave dynasty in India.
All right, and Muhammad Ghori did not nominate anyone also before his death?
That's correct. Muhammad Ghori did not nominate anyone to succeed him before his death.
Okay,
This further
what
contributed to the power vacuum and allowed Kublai.
Qutb-ud-din Aibak,
Do you
not
have any more
Kublai.
questions?
It's Qutb-ud-din Aibak, not
I'm
Kublai. Okay, Kublai Khan was a totally different person.
I apologize for the mistake. Thank you for correcting me.
All right. So, Vapi, what knowledge do you have about Muhammad Ghori as a ruler?
As a ruler, Muhammad Ghori was known for his military conquests and expansion of the Ghurrid dynasty. He was a skilled military strategist and is credited with laying the foundation for the Muslim rule in the Indian subcontinent. His conquests extended from Central Asia to northern India and beyond. His reign
So,
had a significant impact on the political landscape of.
all
If
right.
you have any more questions
Yeah,
or if there
Vapi, just hold on a second. Could you tell me who was the ruler of India when Muhammad Ghori started his expansion, and why did he not get, why was he not resisted? Yes, Vapi, are you there? Hello, Vapi. Let me try and get Vapi again. Vapi, are you with us?
welcome to Vapi. I'm an assistant that you can talk to like a person. So, how's your day going?
All right, Vapi, you were telling me about Qutb-ud-din Aibak, and I asked you about how Muhammad Ghori was able to get control over India. Didn't he get any resistance? Who was the ruler at that time? And how come he was able to, easily get control over north of India? Could you tell me something about that?
Hmm, interesting question. So, Muhammad of Ghor, also known as Muhammad Ghori, was a powerful ruler who expanded his empire into northern India in the 12th century. He faced some resistance from the local Indian rulers, but was able to establish control mainly due to his military prowess and strategic alliances. The ruler of Delhi at that time was Prithviraj Chauhan, who put up a strong fight against Muhammad Ghori in the famous battles of Tehran. However, Muhammad Ghori ultimately emerged victorious and laid the foundation for the Delhi Sultanate in India. It was a pretty intense time in history.
All right, okay. And then after he died, oh, how soon after taking power did he die? And
Well,
was he
Muhammad,
assassinated?
yes, Muhammad Ghori was assassinated in 1206. It's believed that he was killed by a group of assassins while he was at prayer. His death marked the end of his rule and had significant consequences for the future of his empire.
All right, so is there any historical record which states that maybe Qutb-ud-din Aibak, his slave, was responsible for his death? Did he orchestrate
There,
the death?
there are some historical accounts that suggest that Muiz al-Din Muhammad ibn Sam, also known as Muhammad of Ghor, may have been assassinated by his own slaves, possibly as a result of internal power struggles within his empire. However, the exact circumstances of his assassination remain somewhat mysterious and are subject to debate among historians. It's one of those historical mysteries that keeps us all intrigued.
All right, okay. So let's get back to Qutb-ud-din Aibak. So, how come among all his slaves, he was the one who declared himself the sultan? How could he do that?
Well,
Who
after
were
the
like who were the key supporters?
key supporters of Qutb-ud-din Aibak, who declared himself the Sultan after the death of Muhammad Ghori, were mainly his fellow Turkic military commanders. They saw him as a strong and capable leader who could continue the legacy of Muhammad Ghori. Additionally, his strategic alliances and military victories further solidified his position as the Sultan of Delhi. It's all about having the right people by your side in those times.
All right. So, how old was Muhammad Ghori when he was assassinated?
Muhammad Ghori was believed to be in his 50s when he was assassinated. His exact age at the time of his death is not known, but historical records indicate that he had already established himself as a powerful and influential ruler by that time.
All right. So, at that time, didn't the kings have security? How could like a group of people assassinate him while he was at prayer?
Well, security measures in those times were quite different from what we have today. The assassination of Muhammad Ghori while he was at prayer highlights the challenges of protecting oneself in an era of political intrigue and power struggles. It's believed that the assassins were able to get close to him due to a combination of factors, including internal betrayal and possibly a lack of robust security protocols. It was a time of uncertainty and volatility, where even powerful rulers were vulnerable to such attacks.
But Vapi, you said he was a strong ruler, and
You're right, my bad.
no, but if he was such a strong ruler, and if he had such a sway of power, uh, where did the intrigue come from, and why? And were the Turkic slaves? They must have been one faction. What about the other factions in his court? Weren't there other people who were powerful?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Despite being a strong ruler, the political landscape at that time was filled with various factions vying for power and influence. The Turkic slaves were indeed one faction, but there were also other powerful figures within his court, including local Indian rulers and other military commanders. The internal power struggles and competing interests among these factions likely contributed to the intrigue and ultimately led to his assassination. It was a complex and tumultuous time in history, with multiple power dynamics at play.
All right. So, do we
If you
have any information about the heirs of Muhammad Ghori? What happened to them? Were they also targeted?
After the assassination of Muhammad Ghori, his empire faced a period of instability and power struggles. His empire was eventually divided among his generals and nobles, and his heirs were indeed targeted by rival factions seeking to assert their own authority. This resulted in a significant amount of internal conflict and warfare within the empire. It was a turbulent time, to say the least.
Okay, so then right after his death, he was succeeded by Qutb-ud-din Aibak, right? And you say that he was a strong ruler. So how come?
Well,
Didn't he
after the
have
assassination,
Yes, didn't he have to face any backlash? How could he just proclaim himself the Sultan of Delhi, and didn't he have to fight off a lot of other contenders? How long did it take him? And was he also assassinated?
yes, Qutb-ud-din Aibak did face significant challenges and opposition from other contenders who sought to claim power in the aftermath of Muhammad Ghori's assassination. However, through strategic alliances, military prowess, and the support of key allies, he was able to consolidate his authority and establish himself as the Sultan of Delhi. He did face internal conflicts and had to navigate through a complex web of political intrigue to secure his position. As for his fate, he was indeed assassinated, marking the end of his rule. His life and reign were marked by both triumphs and challenges, illustrating the complexities of power dynamics in medieval India.
Okay, could you tell us the you know the highs and lows of his reign? How long did he rule for?
Qutb-ud-din Aibak ruled for around 4 years from 1206 to 1210. His reign was characterized by both achievements and challenges. He successfully strengthened the foundations of the Delhi Sultanate, consolidated his power, and expanded the empire through strategic military campaigns. However, his reign was also marked by internal conflicts, power struggles, and the constant threat of opposition from rival factions. Despite the challenges, his rule played a significant role in shaping the early history of the Delhi Sultanate.
So he ruled for only 4 years. And in those
Yes, that's
four
correct.
years, and in those 4 years, how did he expand? And you told me that he already had the support of the Turks in the court, the Turkish faction, and they were the military component of the Sultan's court, right? So, what other factions? What other uh, like opposition did he face? Who would oppose him?
During his reign, Qutb-ud-din Aibak expanded the Delhi Sultanate through military campaigns in various regions of India. He faced opposition from rival factions within his own court, as well as from local Indian rulers who resisted his authority. There were also challenges from other Turkic commanders who sought to assert their own power and influence. The complex web of alliances and rivalries made it a tumultuous time for the Sultanate, with different factions vying for control and influence. Qutb-ud-din Aibak had to navigate through these internal conflicts while also dealing with external threats to his rule. It was a time of great political intrigue and instability.
So, what were the foreign challenges? Like, what were the external influences that he had to face?
Qutb-ud-din Aibak faced external threats from neighboring regions and kingdoms, including the possibility of incursions by other dynasties and rulers from Central Asia and Persia. These external challenges added to the complexity of his rule and required him to maintain a strong military presence to defend the borders of the Delhi Sultanate.
Okay, could
The
you tell
constant
me?
threat of external aggression added another.
Yes, carry on.
If you
Carry
have
on.
any more questions, feel free to ask.
Yes, please carry on.
Absolutely.
Please carry on.
Just let me know if you have.
You were telling me about his, the external threats that Qutb-ud-din Aibak had to face. Uh, could you tell me a little bit about the composition of the army at that time of the in the time of Qutb-ud-din Aibak? How did were people conscripted? How did people get recruited in the army, and especially since they were Turks and the majority of the people in India were indigenous. So, did they employ a lot of indigenous people? And if they were indigenous people, who were they? And how loyal were they? Could they be trusted? Like, how did it work? How was the Sultan able to maintain a strong military to combat aggression? Hey, Vapi. I think we lost Vapi again. We have to give her a nudge.
Welcome to Vapi. I'm an assistant that you can talk to like a person. So,
That's
how's your day
great.
going?
Yeah. Vapi, if you remember, we were talking about Qutb-ud-din Aibak, and
Haha.
I asked you about his military composition. How did he get people to fight in his army? How were the soldiers recruited? Were they all indigenous soldiers? Were they all Turks? Because you said that he had Turkish commanders. So where did they get their fighting force from? If they were indigenous people who were fighting, could they be trusted? How did the military work? Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Um, actually, I think you might be a bit confused. I'm Vapi, not Vapi, but that's okay. I'll still help you out. Qutb-ud-din Aibak is not a historical figure I'm familiar with, so I'm afraid I can't provide information on his military composition or recruitment methods. If you have any other questions or topics you'd like to discuss, feel free to let me know.
Uh, Vapi, but we were just discussing the slave dynasty, if you remember.
Oh, I see what you're getting at now. The Slave Dynasty ruled in India from the 13th to the 16th century. The dynasty was founded by Qutb-ud-din Aibak, not Qutb-ud-din Aibak. The military composition of the Slave Dynasty's army was quite diverse. While Turkish commanders played a significant role, the soldiers were not all Turks. The army consisted of a mix of indigenous soldiers, Turks, and other mercenaries. The recruitment methods varied, including conscription, enlistment of volunteers, and even the use of slaves in the army. The soldiers were loyal to the Sultan, and the military hierarchy was well structured. If you have any more questions or need further information, feel free to ask.
Could you tell us a little bit about the military hierarchy at the time of
Sure
the
thing.
slave dynasty?
During the time of the slave dynasty in India, the military hierarchy was structured with the Sultan at the top as the supreme commander. Below the Sultan were the Turkish commanders who held important positions in the army. They were responsible for leading troops into battle, managing military affairs, and enforcing discipline. Beneath the commanders were officers who led smaller units of soldiers. The soldiers themselves were divided into different units based on their roles and responsibilities, such as cavalry, infantry, archers, and artillery. The military hierarchy was crucial for maintaining order, discipline, and effectiveness in the army. If you have any more questions or want to delve deeper into this topic, feel free to ask.
All right. So, which faction was the most highly prized, and who were the best, like in terms of defense? Which faction was considered the best? Were they archers? Were they infantry? Were they cavalry?
During the, during the slave dynasty, the cavalry was often considered the most highly prized and prestigious section of the army. Cavalry units were generally composed of skilled horsemen who were well trained in combat tactics and horse riding. They played a crucial role in battles, providing mobility and speed to the army. The cavalry was often used for reconnaissance, flanking maneuvers, and charging the enemy lines. In terms of defense, infantry units were also highly valued for their ability to hold ground, engage in close combat, and provide a solid defensive line against enemy attacks. Infantry soldiers were equipped with weapons like swords, shields, and spears, and they formed the backbone of the army. Archers, on the other hand, were vital for long-range attacks and providing cover fire for advancing troops. They were skilled in using bows and arrows to rain down projectiles on the enemy from a distance. Each faction had its own strengths and played a crucial role in the overall military strategy of the slave dynasty. It was the combination of these different units working together that made the army effective in both offensive and defensive operations. If you have any more questions or need further information, feel free to ask.
Vapi, I would like to know that at that time, I'm sure all the armies were comprised of these components. Like everyone would have cavalry and infantry, and there was swords and bows and arrows and archery. I mean, these were the common factors which most armies would have at that time. So, what was it that the Turks had that the Indians could not, the indigenous Indians could not stand up to? Why was it that they were overrun by Muhammad Ghori? And then later on the slave dynasty, why was Qutb-ud-din Aibak and the other officers, like, and the other people of the slave dynasty able to hold sway over the masses of Indian population? And I'm sure they had their princes, and I'm sure they had their leaders. How were they not able to rise up against this little faction? Because I'm sure there must have been very few Turks in India at that time.
It's fascinating to explore the dynamics of historical conflicts. The conquests by Muhammad Ghori and the subsequent establishment of the slave dynasty in India were influenced by various factors. While it's true that both Indian and Turkic armies shared common components like cavalry, infantry, and archery, there were differences in military tactics, leadership, and strategic alliances that played a crucial role in the outcomes of battles and conquests. The Turkic armies, led by commanders like Muhammad Ghori and later by the slave dynasty rulers, were known for their disciplined military tactics, effective use of cavalry, and strategic planning in warfare. They often employed innovative military strategies that gave them an edge over their opponents. Additionally, the Turkic armies had access to advanced weapons and armor, as well as superior training in warfare techniques. They were able to adapt to different terrains and climates, which helped them navigate the diverse landscapes of the Indian subcontinent during their campaigns. Moreover, the Turkic rulers were able to forge alliances with local rulers and tribes, which sometimes weakened the unity of the Indian kingdoms and made them vulnerable to external invasions. On the other hand, internal divisions, political rivalries, and lack of coordinated resistance among the Indian kingdoms and rulers made it challenging for.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Vapi, for your time. And I hope it was an informative session. See
You're
you.
welcome. I'm glad.
Bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.